Hi there. Hope all is well with you. We're going to be very short today. I want to talk to you about the Bibles, about the books of the Bible, and we want to talk about the primarily the Old Testament books today. As you very well know, there are 66 books in the Bible. There are 39 books in the Old Testament, 27 books in the New Testament. But today we're going to focus on basically the books of the Old Testament, and and the next time we'll focus on the New Testament once we get through with the Old Testament. Just so that you will get an understanding of what it's all about, we need to know and understand that the entire Bible is about Jesus Christ. The Old Testament really is talking about the preparation for and the coming of Christ. The New Testament, beginning with the Gospels, that being the Bible, the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, really talks about the life of Christ while he's on earth. The next books, the books of Acts, the book of Acts, really talk about the actual acts or activities of the apostles following the death of Christ. And then you have what they call epistles or letters, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. And all of these are in the New Testament. But what we want to do is talk about first the Old Testament. And of course, the Old Testament, the first book of the Bible is called Genesis. And Genesis, the meaning of Genesis is beginning. And the book of Genesis really deals with all beginnings. First of all, it deals with the beginning of the creation of the earth, heavens, and earth. As you know, the first verse of the book of Genesis says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth," which suggests two things. Suggests, number one, before the beginning, God existed. That's the first thing. The second thing, it suggests that time and place began when God created the heavens and earth. God always existed. God existed before time, and God will exist after time. So the book of Genesis deal with, number one, the beginning of the heavens and the earth, and also deal with the beginning of humans. In the first book, it talks about when God created man. But before he talked about that, he talked about the creation of the earth. He talked about the creation of the animals, the plant, etc. But it's the beginning of the heavens and the earth. The beginning is the creation of light. Began the creation of man. It has to do with the beginning of everything, of family, of institutions, and even the beginning of his people, the Hebrews. So basically, that's what you're going to find in the book of Genesis, talking about that. Then, of course, following that, you have the book of Exodus, the book of Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. These 5 books are considered to be the books of the law. God giving man, once he's created man, giving man the laws that must be followed. So the first 5 books of the Bible is dealing with the books of the law. So that's what you have. You have Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. And I believe I did present them to you in the right order. I sometimes get Numbers and Leviticus mixed up in terms of how they follow, but if I'm not mistaken, I'll verify that in a moment. But it has to do with that. So that's what you need to understand as it relates to that Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Those are your first 5 books. Following that, you have your history books, and they are Judges, Joshua, Ruth, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, 2 Kings, 1 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther. Those are your history books. I'm going to stop there because this has taken us 5 minutes, and I'm going to come back and pick up a little bit more, okay?